All right, everyone, you might remember a few months ago, California decriminalized murder, aka giving somebody the incurable disease HIV. And at the time, the justification used for this was, well, we've got, AIDS drugs now, we've got antiretrovirals, and so generally you're going to be fine. You just basically take your pills, but people shouldn't be thrown in jail for giving somebody else HIV. Now, I totally oppose that. I think that's a terrible idea. I think that if you knowingly give somebody a disease, especially potentially for malevolent reasons, you could, have that happen. It has happened before. End up weaponizing yourself like a biowarfare factory. I think absolutely there should be significant consequences for that. AIDS was the epidemic that never should have been. It was one part people's unwillingness to tackle the issue in the first place, and the other part was really ignorance. At first, you can find medical textbooks from the 90s. I've actually got one. I think it's from 93 or something. They actually say, oh, well, it's spread by homosexual sex. So they didn't even tell straight couples, yeah, by the way, you could get AIDS. And so what happened is that something that started did indeed start within the gay community because, patient zero, I guess, was part of that community. Then is spread by people who have a bisexual lifestyle to the straight population. Nobody's even warning them. They're like, oh, well, it's the gay disease. And so you end up with tens of thousands of people that are infected. Blood transfusions became a problem because those straight people with AIDS, now of course asymptomatic but still had a viral load, were giving blood and they weren't even screening them. And so really you had a problem within the medical apparatus. And that same medical apparatus in California has failed the people there. By saying, well, it's no longer a public health crisis because it's still incurable, but we can give you pills for it. If we run out of pills or if it mutates or if order breaks down, you're all fucked, but, don't worry too much. Now, exactly what I said was eventually going to happen is happening currently. And that's that in the Philippines, there is now a drug-resistant HIV strain that's begun to spread. It's mutated again. Now, we should have seen this coming, intelligent people did, because there were already multiple variants of AIDS. Did you even know this? No. Most people probably think, well, it's HIV, it's AIDS, it's a disease. Yes, but there are multiple strains of it. It's sort of like influenza. It's actually apparently fairly prone to mutating. The problem is that this particular mutant strain is drug-resistant, which means that now, because it's probably going to end up spreading, with Duterte in charge, he's probably going to try a strong-arm crackdown, causing people to go sort of underground, not get tested, and it's going to spread further. It's going to spread from the Philippines everywhere else, and pretty soon that'll be the main strain of AIDS. Because that's just the sort of way that evolution works. Because, of course, it's no more detectable. It's no less prone to spreading, per se. What happens, by the way? Let's say you get another strain. It mutates further. And this time it becomes 10 times more transmissible. We now know that AIDS actually, even a person with full-blown AIDS, is relatively unlikely to transmit it in any given sexual act. What if it becomes 10 times more transmissible? Like, no, there's like, a 25% chance that I'm going to, give you a bug here. You could have a little bit of a problem. I think the way to solve the stigmatism around AIDS that California alludes to in its decision saying, well, we're going to just decriminalize transmitting it, which is, totally fucking dumb. The way to beat that stigma is to keep doing what you were doing, education. Hey, use safe sex. Hey, just because a person has AIDS, getting near them isn't going to infect you. Stuff like that. Of course, it's what you need to do. Education is a wonderful thing. People know how to actually respond to a situation. But when you simply say, hey, by the way, that person doesn't even have to tell you they have AIDS, that's going to cause alarm. It's going to cause more stigma. It's going to cause people to exhibit avoidant behavior because they're like, well, I don't want to get AIDS. Well, yeah, no shit. It's self-explanatory why you wouldn't want to contract HIV. So now, in the Philippines, in the culture currently run by a rather moralistic government, it's the worst possible problem. You've got this fine line situation where if you have a government response that is either too left-leaning, like a California, or too intolerant, maybe, of people, and it's like, well, maybe we'll start gassing people or something, like maybe a strong-arm Duterte government on that issue, it'd be moralistic. I'm not saying that in general he's a fanatic or anything. I think Duterte is funny, but I can't imagine his particular public health response is going to be helpful. You have these two weird dipoles, neither of which serve the situation well. And the United States as a whole was very much moralistic towards AIDS when it begins. The sort of the history of AIDS is originally, it's like people were openly talking about, well, maybe we should just have like an island somewhere and put people with AIDS on it. In other words, maybe we should tattoo like on their forehead that they have AIDS or something. And this, well-meaning in a weird way, it wouldn't have worked because it would have caused people just not to get tested. Now, or you would have had to have suspended the Fourth Amendment. It's sort of one of those situations where there's really no actual true way to respond to it that takes care of the situation fully. What we should be doing is trying to, of course, cure this disease. Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen, though, because right now all research into it seems to be, we've got this pill that'll, keep you from dying, and we're going to try to, research ways to prevent others from spreading it, but it's still spreading. It's not really working. In parts of Africa, it is an absolute epidemic. I believe in South Africa, it's 1 in 10 people has AIDS. Can you even fucking fathom it? In Russia, it's like 1 in 30 or 1 in 40. It's an insane number. It's a measurable proportion of the population in some states, especially if they're wrapped up, if there's a lot of needle usage, drugs, intravenous drugs. You've got heroin, a lot of opiates in Russia. That's become bathtub heroin. And so the crocodile or whatever, stuff that eats away at your bones, not pretty. In Africa, you have problems with simply you have sort of a tribal fusion spiritual system in which people are like, if you rape a virgin, you're cured of AIDS, stuff like that. Well, it doesn't actually work, but this is what the locals circulate as actual knowledge. It doesn't help the fight against it. It's like with Ebola. Look at Ebola. One of the big problems with fighting Ebola, it's not that there wasn't a medical apparatus in place to combat it, it's that people stopped using that medical apparatus. Because they're like, well, you're telling us to burn the dead bodies. What the fuck are you talking about? It's against our religion, quite literally. It's very hands-on. The burials that they perform in parts of West Africa, in a tribal sense, are very hands-on. They bathe the body ritualistically. They're touching the body. It's not the most sanitary of things to do, but it's part of their cultural beliefs. Good luck trying to get them to forsake that. It takes decades of government intervention to get a culture to change that much, and it's only half-assed and usually won't work anyway. So, fucking good luck with the next Ebola epidemic. California is absolutely nuts. So now exactly what I said was the problem with their suggestion is the problem. Look, it's not even so much, hey, simply you've given someone something incurable that has a stigma associated with it, now they have to scarf down pills for the rest of their lives. It's not just that. At the very least, they should be able to sue in civil court for their lifetime spending on the antiretrovirals. It's not even that. It's that if you destigmatize it too much, get people to be very laissez-faire about their sexual behavior. It doesn't matter if I share this needle because, I can always get pills for the AIDS stuff. No, it doesn't matter if I have 5 partners this week, unprotected. That's okay because, it's not curable, but it's treatable now. Then you have this problem. California is a main hub of travel as well with the Philippines, with all of Asia. Don't you see anything being problematic here? I think that there's a little bit of a problem. I think that you're going to have a second AIDS epidemic. There's an openly warning of it. They're like, well, we really haven't contained it fully. We're going to have another AIDS epidemic because, it's developing drug resistance. How many drugs do you think you're going to be able to develop? We're having problems with diseases that generally respond well to a dozen different fucking types of drugs. You have a very specific antiretroviral cocktail. For AIDS, a few variants of that. That's all you have. And at least one strain's already resistant to them. Which means that you're still going to have a viral load, which means that the Californian advice of just take your pills and you can't transmit it is totally fucking bogus. So be very careful if you're in the state of California, I guess, sleeping around. California might become the new seat of Judeo-Christian sexual moralism and go far right as a result of this. When people see the problems that emerge, when people start collapsing covered in fucking sores on the bus, it might change a few people's minds because you just screwed your own population. So thanks to California, once a sensible, sane part of the country, hasn't been for a number of decades. And, basically the Philippines are screwed because this is going to spread further. That's about all. Peace out.